thinking the banner has to be, at least 2 banners will be here.
So where do I sit here?
In the mid, yeah, I think there.
Council can sit there. Doctor can come and sit here. Where is Doctor? Doctor?
So meaning, since the seats are not enough, there are some people who will get off.
Yeah. Yeah, but we can put other chairs. Yes. This higher one. There is also space this one.
Yes.
Doctor, you have your basket. Why? Sit. Statement that can give you copies. They are bringing even for that. It's an elephant in that room, and as civil society, we wanted to make our position clear on this issue of pesticides. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to read out my statement, our statement. It's our statement as civil society organizations, and then the individual members of civil society, academia, we also, bring out, clarify on a number of issues. I'm not going to introduce the members of the panel here, but everybody who is speaking is going to introduce herself or himself and then say what they want to say on the issue of pesticides. So here we go. I'm going to read the civil society press statement, and the topic is hazardous pesticides, the silent killer in Uganda. January 5th, 2025, Kampala, Siatin offices, Bukoto, Kampala. We, the undersigned civil society organizations, committed to promoting sustainable agricultural trade, food safety and sovereignty, climate, gender justice, biodiversity restoration, human and environmental rights, and equitable development, are concerned about the inappropriate use of hazardous pesticides in Uganda, and do hereby call upon the government of Uganda to regulate and ban all hazardous pesticides, especially glyphosate and chlorophos on the market in Uganda. The Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, and World Health Organization defines pesticides as any substance or mixture of substances of chemical or biological ingredients intended for repelling, destroying, or controlling any pest or regulating plant growth. This includes materials that modify pest behavior or physiology, the insect repellents, or affects crops during production or storage, including herbicides, as well as insecticides, fungicides, and herbicides. The language is a bit scientific and complicated, but we have people around here who will be able to break down some of these issues. We recognize that agriculture is the mainstay of our economy, employing about 70% of the working population, most of whom are practicing subsistence farming. The sector accounts for about 24% of Uganda's GDP and is the main source of food, raw material for industries, and foreign exchange. According to the National Organic Agriculture Policy, Uganda's agriculture system is by default largely organic. We note that the sector is facing significant challenges that hinder its potential for growth and sustainability. These include inter alia, declining soil fertility, over-reliance on rain-fed agriculture, inadequate access to modern farming technologies, poor infrastructure, and vulnerability to climate change. We recognize that persistent challenge of pest resistance, given Uganda's tropical climate, which favors pest diversity and fast multiplication rates. Pests and disease management remain one of the major production constraints for farmers of different crops. These challenges, or the challenges which we have enumerated, inhibit productivity, negatively impact people's livelihoods, and compromise the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly Goal 2, which is zero hunger. We have further noted that in order to increase agricultural productivity, controlling harmful pests, diseases, and invasive weeds is very critical. Pesticides continue to be the main tool used for pest management worldwide, with a projection of about $309 billion by 2025. This is according to UNEP. The Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, asserts that the total quantity of agricultural pesticides used in Uganda doubled in the 12 years between 2010 and 2022 from 2,990 tons to 6,000 tons. Similarly, the monetary value of pesticides imported to Uganda more than doubled from $32.57 million to $75.87 million in 2022, with a peak import of value of $108 million reported in 2020. And this is according to the FAO statistics of 2024. Currently, there are approximately 40 registered pesticide importing companies in the country. The increased use of pesticides is attributed to their use for weeding and the increased use of hybrid seeds and livestock. We have observed that according to the official Uganda Agrochemical Register at the Ministry of Agriculture and the National Drug Authority, the country has had 115 active ingredients and 669 brands of synthetic pesticides legally registered for use in Uganda by the end of 2023. This is according to MAIF, according to the National Drug Authority, and according to a number of other sources. Synthetic pesticides are persistent organic chemicals manufactured to repel, immobilize, incapacitate, kill organisms considered as pests. We are alarmed that according to the 2020 Food Safety Synthesis Report published by the Food Safety Coalition of Uganda on Food Safety Crop Protection Nexus, Insights from the Uganda Agriculture Sector, of the legally registered active ingredients, 47.8 and 86.6% of the brands in Uganda qualified as highly hazardous pesticides. I think I will need to repeat that. That 47.8% and 68.6% of the brands in Uganda qualified as highly hazardous pesticides, according to the Pesticide Action Network criteria for highly hazardous pesticides. On the other hand, the Food Safety Synthesis Report reported that 15.6% of the registered active ingredients and 19.2% of the registered brands in Uganda qualified as highly hazardous pesticides in accordance with the Food and Agriculture Organization. We will explain this further about the highly hazardous pesticides. Highly hazardous pesticides are classified as reproductive toxicants which have a potential to negatively affect the human reproductive system and have adverse effects on pregnancy outcomes and reduced fertility. It's worth noting that by July 2023, 65.5% of the 55 flagged active ingredients registered for use in Uganda and yet considered highly hazardous pesticides according to Pesticide Action Network criteria were not approved for use in the European Union. The majority, 49% of these are highly toxic to bees, 20% are carcinogenic and reproductive toxicants, while 18% are probably carcinogenic and fatal if inhaled. I will ask our scientists to help us explain this further. In addition, some of the active ingredients are considered mutagenic, in which have the ability to mutate our DNA, and are also endocrine disruptors. We are aware that pesticides are significantly impacting health, biodiversity, socioeconomic well-being, trade, and food security. The WHO in 2020 estimated that 385 million cases of unintentional pesticide poisoning, including 11,000 deaths, mostly in low and middle-income countries, are registered annually worldwide. The effects of pesticides from chronic to acute depend not only on how heavily they are applied, but also on the toxicity and the susceptibility of non-targeted organisms that get sprayed, ingest pesticide granules, or consume contaminated water or food. According to UNICEF, pregnant and breastfeeding mothers, children under the age of 5, and elderly are more vulnerable to the effects of pesticides. For example, if exposed to aerial-sprayed pesticides, children will inhale double the amount of an average adult. On the same note, due to the small size of liver and kidney, the same chemical is likely to be 10 times more toxic to a child than to an adult. This is according to a UNICEF study of 2018. We are concerned that the increased use of highly hazardous pesticides in Uganda is a threat to the realization of the right to adequate food, people's livelihoods, and farmers' rights. We are further concerned that pesticide runoff is reducing aquatic species diversity, water species diversity by 42%, and threatening pollinators like bees, which are critical for 75% of global food production. According to the European Environmental Agency, pesticides are intrinsically harmful to living organisms. When used outdoors, they can impact ecosystems even when they are intended to exclusively target a specific pest. If pesticide levels exceed critical thresholds, individually or as a mixture, they affect ecological processes and make ecosystems less diverse. We are further concerned that high pesticide costs, counterfeits, and health-related productivity losses burden small-scale farmers. Counterfeit agrochemicals make up 40% of Uganda's market, causing financial losses. FAO estimated that Africa loses $4 billion annually to pesticide mismanagement. We have further noted that according to WUBOS, Uganda Bureau of Statistics 2021, Uganda lost over $60 million in fresh produce exports due to residue violations. Currently, there are growing concerns about pesticide misuse, including improper application, counterfeit products, and insufficient training. Increasingly, farmers face a high risk of exposure due to the use of toxic chemicals or counterfeit pesticides whose use is either banned or restricted in other countries, improperly regulated application techniques, poorly maintained or totally inadequate spraying equipment, and unacceptable storage practices, among other similar issues. Glyphosate-based herbicides in particular have raised significant alarm globally due to their potential environmental and health risks. In Uganda, glyphosate use has become widespread, especially among large-scale commercial farms and in crop management practices. While glyphosate is a widely used herbicide for weed control, its use has been linked to a range of environmental and health issues, such as contamination of water sources, soil degradation, and potential carcinogenic effects on humans. The increasing use of such chemicals without adequate regulation, monitoring, and education poses a significant risk to the health of farmers, consumers, and ecosystems. The uncontrolled use of pesticides, including glyphosate-based herbicides, is not just a local issue. It's intrinsically tied to global environmental challenges, especially climate change. Pesticide misuse exacerbates soil health degradation, reduces biodiversity, and can lead to water pollution, all of which contribute to the vulnerability of the agriculture sector and to the impact of climate change. As global temperatures rise and weather patterns become increasingly erratic, Uganda's agriculture faces heightened risks, including crop failure, water scarcity, and reduced food security. We note that the use of pesticides to produce food, both to feed local populations and for export, should comply with national regulations and laws, international commitments and conventions, and sustainable agricultural practices. We note that Uganda is a party to several international conventions, including the Rotterdam Convention, Stockholm Convention, and the Montreal Convention. The broad purposes of these conventions is to prevent humans and environment from being exposed to the adverse effects of hazardous chemicals and waste to all stages of their life cycle, from production to disposal. We have further noted that the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, 1995 as amended, provides under Objective 14 that the state shall endeavor to fulfill the fundamental rights of all Ugandans to social justice and economic development, which includes inter alia access to clean and safe water. Objective 21 provides that the state shall take all practical measures to promote a good water management system at all levels. Objective 22 on food security and nutrition, Article 39, provides that every Ugandan has a right to a clean and healthy environment. We commend government that in 2006, the Agricultural Chemical Control Act, herein called the Act, was passed with the aim of controlling and regulating the manufacture, storage, distribution, and trade in, use, importation, and exportation of agricultural chemicals and for the other related matters. This act is relevant in the protection of the right to health and the right to adequate food of all Ugandans by regulating agrochemical use. We have, however, noted with concern that the regulations as required to be passed under the Act have not been enacted and passed. Further still, there is a glaring challenge of weak implementation of this Agricultural Chemicals Control Act. We also commend government for setting up a special committee to study and profile the various agrochemicals and inputs and other various sources that are available on the market in Uganda. We are cognizant of the fact that pesticides can prevent large crop losses, and we therefore continue to play a role in agriculture. However, the effects of exposure to highly hazardous pesticides on humans and the environment are a continuing concern. We have further noted the narrative peddled by the multinational corporations, by the chemical industry, and by the industrial agricultural actors that pesticides are indispensable to modern agriculture, to climate change mitigation, or to food security. This narrative is driven more by commercial and profiteering interests rather than by evidence and goodwill for smallholder farmers. We are asserting that sustainable agroecological farming practices are the key to addressing the challenges facing Uganda's agriculture sector while protecting health, biodiversity, and the environment, and breaking the cycle of pesticide dependency. Against the above context, we hereby recommend the following. 1. The Agricultural Chemicals Control Bill, Board, the Agricultural Chemicals Control Board, under the Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, should expedite its work and profile the various agrochemicals, herbicides, and inputs, and their various sources that are available on the market in Uganda. 2. Government should ban the importation of highly hazardous pesticides. 3. Government, through the Department of Crop Inspection and Certification at the Ministry of Agriculture, should strengthen the regulation, management, use, handling, storage, and trade of agrochemicals in Uganda. 4. Government and other stakeholders should purposefully plan and budget for education and awareness on the management, use, handling, storage, and trade of agrochemicals in Uganda. 5. Government should strengthen research and innovation for sustainable approaches such as agroecology and best pest and disease management technologies. 6. Government should enhance domestic resource allocation for research and innovation, specifically for integrated pest management and agroecology. Lastly, government should fast-track development and completion of the national government should fast-track development and completion of the national agroecology strategy. Lastly, the upcoming extraordinary summit of the Comprehensive African Agricultural Development Program, CAADP, due to take place in Uganda from January 9th to 11th, 2025, should consider agroecology as a core strategy and approach to safeguard African biodiversity, improved nutrition and health, enhance soil health, increase resilience to climate and other crises, and strengthen local food systems. In conclusion, revamping Uganda's agricultural sector through sustainable agricultural practices require a multifaceted approach that addresses both environmental and socio-economic challenges while promoting long-term food security and resilience. The ongoing debate on agrochemical use in Uganda should be transparent. It should be respectful without undermining the efforts of smallholder farmers. I submit. This statement is signed by a number of organizations. We are going to give you a copy. You will see these organizations. There is Signatory, there is Participatory Ecological Land Use Management, PERAM Uganda, Caritas Uganda, Gender and Environmental and Development Action, Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights, CEFROT, Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa, AFSA, Consent, Eastern and Southern African Small-Scale Farmers Forum, ESAF Uganda, Food Rights Alliance, Food Safety Coalition, Uganda. I thank you, members of the Fourth Estate. Now, I'm going to call upon Dr. Gregory Olupot. He's a scientist from Makerere University, Kampala, to be able to elucidate on a number of these challenges, or number of these issues. Dr. Olupot, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning and Happy New Year. I would like to thank Signatory and the rest of the team that is here that has organized this. I was only notified, I think, a few 2 or 3 days ago. But once a soldier, you should always be prepared. I also read an article which featured, I think it was on New Vision or Monitor, Daily Monitor, written by Professor Latigo. And I thought it had a lot of misinformation that needed to be put right. Agriculture is a practice innovated by humans. It's a livelihood strategy innovated by humans for the common good of humanity. And throughout the evolution, since domestication of farming crops and animals more than 10,000 years ago, that common good has been at the center stage of farming. Not the benefit for isolated groups. And because of that, the kind of farming, by farming I mean cultivation of crops, rearing of animals, has had embedded in it the aspect of diversity. Because agriculture originates from manipulation of a natural system. If you can imagine maybe a Budongo forest, if you can imagine some grassland somewhere, that was the way it was naturally. So agriculture has encroached on that for plants and animals that offer unique benefits in terms of food, and other benefits, fiber to humanity. And because of this manipulation, in a way, agriculture has tended to be, an agricultural environment has tended to be different from the natural setting. But increasingly, especially after the Industrial Revolution in the 1850s, there has been a shift of this farming from the communities to groups. And by groups, I mean companies, corporations, and individuals who have taken over control of the two extremes of farming, that is production and consumption. At production, what has been controlled? The means of production. The inputs, the tools, the land, and this leads to massive land grabs in the early 1930s. We saw in Europe, we saw in America. After America realized from World War I that it could make fortunes from exporting grain and firearms to the warring parties in Europe. So from 1918 onwards, agriculture has never been the same. And one of the turning points was the channeling of warfare materials into management of pests and diseases. The modern the pest, as defined currently, refers to all organisms that are considered harmful to crops and animals. They include diseases like viruses, fungal pathogens, bacterial, plants like weeds. All those are called what? Pests. So we see a channeling of, when the guns kept silent, we first see these warfare materials being used to kill lice. Fleas had almost wiped Europe 8 centuries ago, especially a city called Ian, south of London. It had been virtually wiped out by plague, bubonic plague. So they discovered the importance of these chemicals in controlling human pests. And they shifted this to crop pests, and from crop pests to animal pests. Now, by the late 1930s, the pests they were using were inorganic materials, gammatox, copper sulfate. These ones were not a problem. But the discovery of the synthetic chemicals, I'm talking about 2,4-D, I think the farmers know paraquat. 2,4-D in 1939. 2,4-D is the abbreviation for 2,4-dichlorophenoxyethanoic acid. That is an organic chemical. And then in 1940, they discovered what? DDT, diphenyl trichloroethane. Now, 2,4-D for weeds, DDT for insects. And that now rocks the world of agriculture, who controls the inputs, especially chemicals, for their profit, not for the profit of what? Nature. Now, since then, the world has never been the same of agriculture. We have seen entry into the sector of one chemical after the other. Not the inorganic salts that we knew in 1918 up to the late 1930s, when the guns kept quiet of World War I and II, but the synthetics. Synthetics are organic molecules, chemicals that have been manufactured specifically for pesticides, for controlling weeds, insects, birds, all that damage the crops. Because of the nature of these chemicals, I'm talking especially about those which contain chlorine, and therefore there is what we call polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs. Those chemicals are very persistent in nature once you introduce them to the environment. What does persistence mean? That when it enters the crop or the animal's body, it will get you on the table as food. And this is what is responsible for the burden of diseases that we see in the hospitals, whether you're talking about breast cancer, whether you're talking about liver damage, all those multiple complications, they come after the entry of these chemicals into the environment. And on top of that, because of the rising pressure on the impact of synthetic chemicals, there has now been wisdom from clever devils, the scientists themselves, top-notch scientists, that let us now shift this property into the plant so that we do away with the what? With the chemicals they are talking about. Now, shifting it to the plant and doing away with the other one, the impression is that we have now done away with the what? With the pesticides. No, you have enabled the plant to manufacture them and use them for its defense. Instead of being sprayed to defend it, now the plant defends itself. Now, what is that plant? By definition, it is a pesticide. And therefore, the talk about regulation of pesticides cannot be handled in isolation from regulation of genetically engineered materials. And this not only include crops, but also the pandemic vaccines. These are genetically engineered. The contraceptives. There is a use of genetically engineered insulin. All these have the same impacts in us. They leave us no better than we were before, or without them. And so the debate about these chemicals, since the focus was basically on glyphosate, cannot be handled in isolation, because 97% of GMOs are actually to do with insect resistance and weed resistance. So they are nothing but what? Pesticides, either herbicides or insecticides. So what do we see according to the US Department for Agriculture report 2012-2013, when they conducted a survey of the history of use of these chemicals and the impacts? When they got access to scientific research by the industry-funded scientists, all the conclusions are indicating that these materials are safe. Now, when you go to the independent research from the independent scientists whose funding does not originate from the lobbyists in the biotech industry, all the findings point to what? Risks. And on the basis of this, 2015-2016, America bans use of especially neonicotinoid pesticides and any GMOs cultivation near what they call the sanctuaries, the heritage sites, the national parks, because of the impact on the bees and the butterflies of these chemicals. So we are concerned about the impact they have on the bees and butterflies, but we are advocating for bunkers and new detection machines in Mulago. And we are the ones footing these bills. The manufacturers of cancer are happy to manufacture the machines, the X-ray machines, the bunkers, and others that we use for detecting cancer. They have a package for you for treatment. $10,000 in America, in Australia. It is not less than 10,000 to detect and treat. And by the way, what we have here, first of all, the detection efficiency is very low. And then when you are taken for chemotherapy, the radiations you are subjected to are several orders of magnitude above what is expected. So you actually take into the hospital for murder. And that is why you see the people initiated in these treatments they don't recover, because the process of murdering you has started. And so the call for agroecology is not new. Agroecology was our traditional practice. This is what we practiced before. The only difference now is what value can science add to what communities were doing. Because what the communities were doing, there was a lot of wisdom in it. There was a lot of intelligence in it. They knew what failed and what worked where and when. And this information was passed free. If a daughter went home and found a seed she was interested in, she would take it. And that is how the farmers, the smallholder farmers, who are still, by the way, more than 70% of the food on our tables is coming from these farmers, not the big producers. Once the farming shifts to the hands of the big producers, who can afford the food? Imagine I go with all my science of the soil, how much nitrogen has been removed, what about phosphorus, potassium, zinc, molybdenum, chlorine, and I want to factor what is the cost of replacing this. Who can afford the cost of that food? If I put that price on, what about the time I've invested in farming? Now, the modern agriculture is monoculture, which is an ecological disaster. When you remove diversity, you actually eliminate the natural checks and balances. Pests and diseases become a problem. How do you manage them? Pesticides become a necessity. And that's why they are talking that pesticides are indispensable. Yes, with the current mindset of farming, pesticides are actually indispensable. The only way to get out of pesticides is to take farming back to where it came from. And that must start yesterday, not even today. And that is agroecology. Once we have successfully achieved that, fertilizers, pesticides, the synthetics especially, will become progressively irrelevant. And the multinational industry is a big one. They cannot just look on when their business is being attacked. So the war between returning agriculture to where it came from versus maintaining it where it is the war between the powerful and the powerless. It is up to us to decide. Should we continue the costly way of pushing the ship to its crash, or we actually begin the reversal? Chlorpyrifos, which is used on the management of insect pests, among others, has very debilitating health impacts on our health. It has been banned. America banned it long ago in the 60s. Nigeria banned it in 2016, although it is still in the black market. So why are we still using it? Heptacula, the one they use for controlling mealybugs, leaf mealybug in pineapples, is you may not be eating pineapples, but if you are taking milk and the cattle have been fed on the pineapple leaves, you will get the heptacula there. It damages the liver, breast cancer, sophisticated complications associated with it. We could go on a list of these. Glyphosate is a simple molecule, so they say it readily degrades, which is true. What makes the degradability of glyphosate in the soil difficult? Number one is the properties of the soil. A soil which is already degraded does not have the microbial activity needed to break down glyphosate. And so it makes a problem worse to apply this chemical on degraded soil which has failed to support crops but weeds. And so there is more glyphosate, more weeds, less diversity, more degradation, and more ill health. Now, glyphosate as a group, the phosphate group, which is similar to the phosphate group in our DNA. Because I saw the article by Professor Latiga. I don't know really whether, ever since he left, he went into politics, whether he has taken time to catch up with the science as it has evolved. That phosphate group binds onto a DNA, and it causes what? Damage. And that induces all these mutations that lead to cancer, teratogenic effects, that is the birth defects, so many complications. And there is a chain of articles published in peer-reviewed sources, some of which I have shared with him. So for Professor Latigo to claim that he needs literature, peer-reviewed literature, is dishonest, is being dishonest. So for now, I think in the interest of time and also for the rest, I beg to first submit and respond to maybe questions as they arise. Thank you.
Maybe before you take out, maybe you can explain the mixture, the way farmers mix all these and this implication of that concoctions.
Oh yeah, thank you for that reminder. What happens, like I said, that the ship is headed for what? A crash. It is a sure deal, you know that you are headed for a crash. So it is up to you whether to get out of it or insist. Now, the farmers will keep trying here and there because the organisms targeted are living organisms. They also innovate in their own ways. Once you overpump glyphosate, they will they develop resistance for it. Now, what the farmers have done, on the same knapsack sprayer, they will put atrazine, they will put 2,4-D, they will put glyphosate, they will put 2,4,5-T. So you find a cocktail of these chemicals. Now, these chemicals reinforce each other. A poor glyphosate, which was not degradable, has been combined with others that actually can make it more persistent. And that is the reason for the multiple complications. From a single use of the pesticide, you don't know which are the active ingredients and how many in one. For you, you think, and to hide that, they have now given them names. Once they come up with a concoction, it is no longer glyphosate, weed master, weed go, rocket. Can you imagine? So to make sure, to create the impression that what is being done is good for all of us, we should actually, who is not happy to see the weeds go? But at what cost is the weeds going? And that's why when we come to policy issues, really, when the issue of branding, labeling, all of these crimes should be criminalized. Giving when you go to northern Uganda, where Professor Latigo comes from, that it's actually the headquarters of abuse, misuse of these chemicals. I've been there. Very fertile soil, but you look at the way the farmers are using these chemicals. Now some of them have even been given the local actually names. Can you imagine this? So now you cannot trace the source. Still on the policy, the manufacturers say, I'm only responsible, I can only be held liable for the parent compound. For the parent compound. That means if you have trifluoralin is just has one benzene group. But now, when that compound gets into the soil, it will react with our other chemicals and reproduce itself. So that the end product is far more sophisticated, far more persistent, and far more dangerous than the parent product. The same with atrazine. Atrazine is a herbicide. It can also reproduce itself and polymerize. But now, because the people who brought them on market anticipated, the laws that they have made have cushioned them from the liability from the secondary metabolites of these products. So people dealing with law, this must be handled hand in hand with the issue at hand.
Thank you so much, Dr. Olupot. I want to call upon Dr. Kabanda to explain more about the link between these agrochemicals, the pesticides, and health and food. It's okay. No, leave it.
But is it fixed? Is it fixed?
We want to thank you, members of the press. Thank you so much for highlighting these issues, because food is a shared responsibility. When we are talking about food, we must look at it from a systems approach, from where it is being produced to when it finds us on the table. It is very unfortunate that we are sitting here to talk about a silent killer. For some of us, this is no longer a silent killer. In fact, we need to let people know it is one of the loudest killers that we have, and we have decided to associate with it, keep it in our farms, in our stores, in our houses. And it is very unfortunate that the people who ought to be intellectually helping the people to get off this kind of killer are in fact defending it. I want to sit here to only speak a few words in policy and legal aspects. For a very long time, agriculture and food, particularly in Uganda, has been left off the accountability and governance. And this is causing many people to play around with our health. You've just heard the scientist talking about the cancers. If you want to know the cancer and how it is killing people, go to Mulago and in the countryside. So this particular thing that is killing many Ugandans silently within their homes, selling everything they have, partly comes from the pesticides and the way we are using them. There is a reason why we have the Agriculture Chemicals Control Act. There is a law in Uganda. In 2006, in their wisdom, Parliament passed this law. Under Section 18, they must come up with many regulations, not one, many regulations on use, on importation, everything. But we have continued to wonder why these regulations are not in place. Number two, anyone spraying in Uganda without a certificate of application, they are doing it illegally, including all the farmers, because under that law, no one in Uganda is supposed to apply chemicals if they have not been labeled applicator. The word applicator means that you have been trained in application of pesticides, which is not anywhere. Maif should come up and tell us how many farmers have they trained in Uganda to handle pesticides. This is why, as civil society, we have deep pain, because we meet farmers. We are farmers too. I'm a farmer myself. I have decided to farm the food that I eat because the market is contaminated. Secondly, whoever is promoting pesticides, including the people we take to be professors, should be in prison right now, life imprisonment, because they are violating not only the laws we are talking about as Agroecology Chemicals Control Act, but also the Constitution, which is protecting my right and other people's rights. The Constitution goes ahead to protect anyone from threats. So just imagine the kind of damage that comes from these articles that we read in the press promoting chemicals. I may not go so much into the human rights and what I've just told you. The Constitution protects your right to adequate food. It protects your right to eat food that is not contaminated with chemicals. It is only in Uganda where we do not have a farm gate policy. If you injected your chicken with everything, you can take them to the market tomorrow. You all know that. We have scientific reports that have told us that almost 89% of the food that we buy in main markets in Kampala is contaminated. Haven't we seen tomatoes full of mancozeb? Mancozeb has been banned everywhere, including EU. EU is producing and giving export licenses to their companies to export to us. And when we engaged them, they told us, but your country allows this, these chemicals. Mancozeb is causing cancer. We are eating tomatoes, that whitish thing that you see. I went to the market last week to buy broccoli, and broccoli is full of mancozeb, visible on my hands. That broccoli thing, they spray everywhere. We are talking about things that should be helping us as a people. Now you have people who come up to divert us. We will not allow this. People must be held personally accountable. We want to speak to whoever is promoting these dangerous chemicals, that you know that it is time. We have eaten enough chemicals. The only years that are left is maybe to fight for the future generation. All of you people who are sitting here, you have doses of these dangerous chemicals in your bodies, because it is difficult to cook food and eat in your house every day. But even when you want to do that, you can't farm everything that you should eat. So we eat in restaurants. Those restaurants cannot afford to prepare organic meals for you, because what is on the market is this, chemicalized food, vegetables and everything. So I may sound like I'm shouting and fighting, but we need to fight. Yes, this is what I mean. We'll fight legally. We'll fight in the press. We'll tell those people off our food. If they think that they should be promoting chemicals, they didn't grow up eating these chemicals. Why are they pushing them to us? So I want to call you, the press. I started by thanking you. Kindly let us sit. We have a plethora of laws that we can use. The Public Health Act, you know, is already promoting public health. We have the Penal Code Act. If they want us to go criminal, we can. We have the Constitution. I've already mentioned that. We have the National Environment Act, Section 3 and 4. And we have the right to a clean and a healthy environment. Let me stop here.
Thank you so much. Bernard?
Come here.
Bernard, come nearer. And Bernard, please.
You can sit here. You can sit here.
Council, you can come this way because it's okay. It's okay. Okay. Bernard, introduce yourself. Please.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to join my colleagues to appreciate you for giving us this platform to speak about the issue of pesticides. My name is Bernard Wambale. I head the programs at the Global Consumer Center, or Consent. I also coordinate the activities in this country on food safety with the Food Safety Coalition of Uganda, and I'm glad to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, this country has registered 115 active ingredients in the pesticides that we are talking about. That is for the register that we have at MAIF, but also at the Drug Authority. These active ingredients have been packaged differently in 669 brands in this country. Now, there are different criteria that we can use to tell which chemical is actually highly hazardous and which one is not. For now, there are two criteria that we have gotten all the chemicals in this country and try to expose them to those criteria and see which chemicals do we have on the market that are highly hazardous. One of the criteria is called the Joint Meeting on Pesticide Management. This is a tool by FAO, or Food and Agriculture Organization, and also WHO. According to that criteria, in Uganda, we have 18 active ingredients that are fully registered in this country, but they're being considered as highly hazardous pesticides according to the Joint Meeting on Pesticide Management criteria. And these have been packaged in 129 brands in this country. Now, we also have another criteria that we subjected them to, called the Pesticide Action Network, or the PAN. Now, according to the PAN network, Uganda has fully registered, legally registered, 55 active ingredients. These are presenting in 459 brands. But all these 59 active ingredients and the 459 brands, according to the PAN, are classified as highly hazardous. Now, from simple logic, if someone said this thing is highly hazardous, it is just simple logic that actually they are hazardous to human health. The word hazardous, it's just enough. But they even go ahead to say that these chemicals that I've just mentioned up there are actually highly hazardous. Now, what does that mean? We went ahead to break down these chemicals, and we found out that of the 55 active ingredients registered fully in this country, 65.5% of them cannot be used in countries where they are coming from. Now, if a chemical, a highly hazardous chemical, is produced in a particular country and that country cannot use it, who are we to start thinking that we can use it? This is where our concern is. So whatever is not used in the EU, it means it doesn't fit for use for human beings. So the human beings in Uganda and the human beings in Europe are all human beings, and we are all sharing the same human rights. Now, I just now want to focus on a little bit on the consumers. What the criteria that I've just mentioned up there, how they classify these chemicals. Some of the highly hazardous pesticides that we are talking about have been classified as mutagenic. Now, these are scientific terms. Mutagenic means a compound that can alter your DNA. And your DNA is the genetic makeup of you. So literally, it would mean that when you consume food consisting of this kind of product, you stand a risk of your DNA or your genetic makeup being altered. And that is why some papers now will go ahead to say this could be responsible for people who are born with, you know, you have a gene, but you don't understand what this human being looks like. Issues of autism and whatnot, they come from this kind of thing. So when we are talking about mutagenicity, that is what we actually mean. That actually some of these chemicals, whose list we have put here, we shall share with the media, you can be able to have a look at it and see those chemicals that we have in the country and are mutagenic. Number two, some of these chemicals have been prescribed as carcinogenic. Carcinogenic in science, it basically means that this chemical has potential to cause cancer. There's so many cancers. Now, I just want to give you a little bit of science. Every time we consume this food and has chemical compounds, they actually go to the liver for regulation. So every time you are consuming the chemicals, time comes and the liver is overwhelmed and cannot do so much. And so we see liver failure coming in and other internal organ failure. So this is now the carcinogenicity that we are talking about in some of these chemicals. I have also provided a list here. You could look at it. Others have been classified as endocrine disruptors. What that means, the endocrine system is responsible for generation of your hormones. And hormones are within us to control the body system. For instance, if you consume the food, let us say maize, a hormone called insulin will come into play to regulate that sugar that comes out from the maize and takes it wherever it is going. Now, we have pesticides that are actually described as endocrine disruptors, that when we take them, they can actually disrupt the endocrine system, meaning that it can interfere with the hormones of our bodies. Now, you see where the mess is. So imagine your hormones are not functioning the way they are supposed to function because of an endocrine disruptor that you've consumed in the food. Which other human rights then are we talking about? Yeah? And then others have been classified as, the scientific classification is called EPA probable carcinogens. What that means is that the scientists have done research on the carcinogenic compounds in that product, but they are not scientifically enough to justify the risk to cause cancer in humans. However, in the animal trials, it has already been confirmed that such a product can cause cancer in an animal. That's what they are calling EPA probable carcinogens. So when I was looking at the article of the professor, he was mentioning that some of these chemicals we are claiming that they are probable carcinogens. And I wanted to mention to us that when something is a probable carcinogen, it means that studies have been done, trials have been done, and so far on animals it has been confirmed that it can cause cancer. But more studies, more scientific studies are being conducted on humans to see if that same compound can actually cause cancer to humans. So we don't want people to keep confusing us with science. So this is science. Others have been considered as fatal when inhaled. What that means is that if a farmer, for instance, is spraying a chemical on a tomato and they have exposure and they inhale it, it can cause death. So that's what we are calling fatal when inhaled. So imagine a farmer who doesn't know these things and is spraying, but is carrying a baby. So both the mother and the baby are inhaling this chemical.
Either to the back or
either to the back or front, yes.
Or in the stomach.
Or even a young girl is on the side following. Now they are all inhaling the chemical. What does that mean? Fatal when inhaled. It means that every time they are inhaling this chemical, they can die. Now, this is the same when you go to the shops where they are selling these chemicals. A woman of P3, the P3 dropout, is the one selling the chemicals, and they are feeding their children, or even they are eating within the same room.
Even graduates.
Even even graduates.
Yes.
So I mean, there's a lot of misconception that we need to air out when it comes to chemicals. Now, what I'm reading here is a segregation according to the criteria that I was mentioning up there. So when you look at the joint meeting on pesticide management by FAO and WHO, and also you go back and read the PAN, the Pesticide Action Network criteria for chemicals, this is how they have classified each of those chemicals. And I think we shall provide the list still with the media because we have it. And then as we conclude, other chemicals have been classified as toxic to bees. You all know the importance of bees. They are giving us the honey that we are eating. They are the key pollinators that we have in this country. Now, if they are highly toxic to bees, it means that in the near future, we may hardly see bees. And that means that we cannot have pollination happen. And if we cannot have pollination happening, it means that the productivity will go low. So when they say they are highly toxic to bees, it means that we are likely to risk losing the bees. And that's why currently you cannot see a swarm of bees. You remember in the olden days, every week you see bees relocating from Chisasi to... Currently you can take a year or so when you've never seen a swarm of bees. So these are the issues.
Or even a bee.
Yes. And then there is an issue of highly toxic to aquatic organisms. That is another classification where these chemicals fall. When they talk about highly toxic to aquatic organisms, what do they mean? That if a chemical went into the water bodies, let us say Lake Victoria or a river, River Nile, whatever, there are chemical compounds that if they just go there, the fish will not survive and other aquatic life. But remember, we have a whole SDG on aquatic life. So what are we talking about? We need to regulate these chemicals as much as we can. Now, a very recent study indicated that some of these chemicals were found in human bodies. When we were taking off samples for people's sweat, urine, and blood, we found these chemicals fully available in our bodies. But they're not supposed to be there. We even found others in food and in water. So all these studies are locally available with us. Very last, when the Europeans send us, for instance, these chemicals and we buy them, they have regulations on which kind of food we can sell to them. We all know that. So it means that if they send us a chemical and we buy it and we start selling it, in the name of economizing our agriculture, we shall produce very big tomatoes, spray them, they don't rot, and you cannot put them on the EU market because they don't meet the standard of the EU market. So they still remain with us. So they will give you the chemical probably to, I don't know whether it is another science of killing humanity, because for them they cannot consume it. You take it there and they reject it and it comes back to us. So the question now here is, how do we want to improve productivity to get more money, and yet those who are supposed to give us that so much money cannot buy our product? So ladies and gentlemen, we need to put our efforts together and make sure we fight this elephant of highly hazardous pesticides.
Thank you so much, Bernard. Now we are going to go to Agnes Chirabo from FRA. Then after we'll go to Betty, and then we'll go to so now you can extend and
let us first shift.
Yeah, let us shift.
Airplane mode is on. Turn it off and try again.
But
then Moses after Agnes.
Moses is next, huh? So Moses also come near. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, members of the press. Happy New Year, and a happy 2025, which is a very pivotal year, politically, but also in the global development, but at the same time, at the local development and the development at continental level. So 2025 is really, really a very critical year where we are stepping into the implementation of the National Development Plan 4. Africa is making a new declaration next week on how best we can guarantee the world as Africa of safe, healthy, and nutritious foods in a way of transforming our agri-food system in a more inclusive manner. And at the same time, looking at the Sustainable Development Goals, goal number 2, our targets were at 2025. We are doing so badly. We're only having 5 years to the end of the Agenda 2030, and then we think of a new development regime after the next 5 years. So I think it is right and fitting to say Happy New Year and to say that 2025 is not a year that we can take on with jokers, pretenders, and deceitful individuals or things like that. It's a very serious year. My name is Agnes Kirabo, and I work for Food Rights Alliance. For us, we don't look at food as some people may think about a solid piece of thing on a plate, or a semi-fluid something in a bowl, or a cup for consumption to tame the pangs of hunger down your stomach. For us, it goes beyond that. We look at food as a human right. And therefore, we are very keen on how this food has been produced, how the food has been handled, how the food is being prepared, and how food is eventually consumed. And we are also very keen on the livelihoods of the entire, all of the actors that are touching this food. I must say that it is actually very unfortunate that we can sit here, and we are sitting here to tell people Happy New Year and reminding them that actually pesticides are killer. This is obvious. At this particular time, I think as Africa, as people of Uganda, we need to wake up. There are certain things we shouldn't argue about. And it is actually very unfortunate that we hide behind the professions, we hide behind titles, and we really forget ourselves. It is quite very, very unfortunate. Many of the challenges that we are suffering as Africa, it is not because we were colonized. It is because that the front runners accepted their brains to be colonized. The essence of education, how China used the education, how China used, for instance, exploration, and all these emerging economies, is to pick their big brains and take them to study, go back to study in the interest of their own countries. Unfortunately, our big brains in Africa do not study in the interest of Africa. They study to master hymns and rhythms of those that paid for their education. We have actually betrayed our people. And I recall a woman in Teso one day when we are having these conversations and consultations on the GMO law. A woman in her humbleness who stood up and asked, did you study to make our lives better, or you study to make our lives worse? So for me, I'm here to say, can we be honest? Can we be patriotic? Can we reflect on all what we have studied? And we ask ourselves, to what benefit is it for our people? For what benefit is it for Africa? Because globally, if you must make money, I advise you, even in Uganda, please don't invest in cell phones, don't invest in applications, please forget about investing in automobiles. Don't invest in all of those fancy things you can think about. Globally, if you must invest and make money quickly, you invest in pharmaceutical, you invest in food. Period. Because the two present humans in the most desperate mode. When you're hungry, and it is biblical, when you're hungry, you can even give away the entire inheritance that you inherited to give you a piece of cassava. That is what hunger means. If you're sick and you're in a hospital, and they are saying for every day we are paying 2-3 million for intensive care, and the bill has accumulated, it is now 38 million, you whisper to your wife that go back and sell our home. Go and sell or mortgage our home. That is what health means. That is what hunger actually means. And people globally have exploited that. They know that at least in a year, you will be their client. You will buy the food, you will eat the food, or you will pace yourself into hospital. So for me, I want to take you away from the science and all of those things that people want to box us in, and then take you into our real lives, that the lives we live. This is what it means. As we are celebrating Christmas, I saw a report on in one of your media houses. And this report, the patients were crying out to government of Uganda that instead of electing tents at the Uganda Cancer Institute, they should, 1, expand the area, and 2, at least build something a bit more permanent. And the health workers were asking, because they were saying that tents tear after a short period of time. So there was no hope that it is going to get better. That's why they were saying expand, because many of us are heading there, and let us build something that is a bit more permanent. Because what is happening now, it is not ending. I would expect professionals, doctors, professors, to be now telling Ugandans that let us stop and reflect and interrogate. Why are we crying for an expansion of the tent area at Uganda Cancer Institute, or even building a permanent, bigger structure? Are we going to make the entire Mulago and Wandege, I don't know what is the next village, Kamocha, are we going to gazette it to be a cancer place for this country? So we are crying that the scientists, instead of being deceitful and dishonest, Ugandans need solutions, because nobody wants to hurriedly move to their grave, much as that we are heading there, but you shouldn't hurry there. And we have a responsibility as the current population. The next issue is that we are not talking about somebody claiming I'm a serious farmer. Hey, how many people do you feed? Statistics tell us that 80% of the food that we are consuming here is not from the people who purportedly claim to be serious farmers. It is from the smallholder farmers that die innocently, and not even a media house can announce their death. Some of these people who are claiming to be serious farmers, luckily enough, they farm on telephone. They farm on telephone. They are employing the younger people who, according to Council Kabanda, have never been certified as applicators. They are the ones they are employing. When they fall sick, they send them back to their villages. They die innocently. So we need to be honest, but we also need to be accountable, and we need to be responsible. The third issue that I need to talk about is that we are not talking about food alone. You know, the greedy push us into the corner to say all what you want is production and productivity. It is not that. Bernard has just told you that we are not talking about increasing yields of maize because they will not increase anyway. The bees will be dead. They will not increase anyway. We are talking about an ecosystem. We are talking about the birds. We are talking about the microorganisms we cannot see with our own naked eyes. We are talking about the weeds. We are talking about the insects. We are talking about the animals. We are talking about the water. We are talking about the soil. We are talking about the air. And this is what makes it very complicated. Don't claim to be a serious farmer, man. Don't. Because we are inheriting. We are inheriting innocently, we who are not part of your business. We are inheriting the birds, the soil, the water. So nobody is going to emerge free. I do not want arguments that are coming in and they are flaunting selfish interests. Because don't talk about yourself. We are not talking about our individual interests. We are talking about the entire ecosystem. We are talking about generations. We are talking not only about those that I have talked about. No wonder many men, the other day I had a report in the media, how DNA centers have made a lot of money in 2020 for you men. These silent killers we are talking about are about you. They are about you. They are about you. So, if you thought that we are talking about serious farmers and unserious farmers, we are also talking about you whose DNA test is tomorrow. Please don't dare yourself. Don't dare yourself. The pesticides have already done something for you, so you better join us. We are talking about the economy. We are talking about economics. We are talking about money. We are talking about social stability. You know the fights that emerge from DNAs and stuff and things like that. Every time we are in the media, we are seeing people, hey, I moved out because blah, 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 blah. They are talking about functioning and performing and all those things. So, colleagues, let us not hide behind any profession. The medical world has moved a little bit faster to regulate the use of drugs because they know they are chemicals of some sort. And they keep educating us about self-treatment, self-diagnosis, but somebody out there is saying, Malaga produce, Malaga apply, Malaga use any chemical, Malaga consume. That is the only way you'll be classified as a serious farmer. I'm here to tell you, 2025 is your year. 2025 is our year. Let us form a new beginning. As producers, as consumers, as actors in the agri-food system in Uganda, if the agri-food system is going to work for us, it doesn't pay for you to earn a lot of money and pay it for what is this cancer treatment? Chemotherapy. Then which money did you make anyway? And please, council, Kabanda, don't think about saying you're growing your own food because you don't school your children.
Oh, yeah.
They go to, and you might even be arrested, and they are not going to arrest you in your house. You will eat this food in prison. You cancel it. Huh? It will not happen. So, ladies and gentlemen, pesticides are silent killers of humans, of nature, of our soils that are getting barren, of our water, of our agri-food system. I don't imagine an agri-food system in Uganda without bees, without butterflies, and above all, without grasshoppers.
Thank you so much. Briefly, we are going to hear from Betty Aguti, and Betty Aguti is going to talk about those serious farmers. Okay, Betty, go ahead. You have
Thank
the
you
floor.
very much. My name is Betty Rosa Guti. I work for Caritas Uganda as a policy and advocacy specialist, but I'm also the national coordinator of Uganda Farmers Common Voice platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, Happy New Year and good afternoon. We are here today on very serious matters of life and death to me, and matters that are concerning our country and every one of us. The issue we are talking today does not segregate whether you are a farmer or you are not a farmer. These issues affect us all together, and they affect us equally. As Caritas Uganda, we believe in the concept of humanity, God's people, having life in its fullness. And this is embedded in our vision of John 10:10, where Jesus was saying, I have come so that you may have life and have it to its fullness. When we have the challenges of agrochemicals and the chemicals that continue contaminating our food and giving us diseases and giving us a lot of effects, this is not the purpose for the coming of our Lord Jesus, of coming to give us life in its fullness. Ladies and gentlemen, a number of my colleagues have talked about our status in this country, where over 70% are farmers, and by the way, smallholder farmers who depend on the land on everyday basis to feed this country. As a country, we depend on the food that is produced by our own farmers and in our own land. That is why we are here today, and this is the matter that we have to take very seriously as a people of Uganda, leaving no one behind. Smallholder farmers who till the land and who produce the food for this country have been left to no one to guide them on what to do. And you find that today, smallholder farmers use these chemicals as though they are using airtime of those days, where you say, give me a card of 500 shillings. You just scratch it and put the airtime in your phone. That is what is taking place today. Nobody is telling the farmer what to use and what type of soil, on what type of crops, and after what period of time they should harvest or they should use these products from their garden. The farmer just goes to buy. They even go with this Renzori bottle. Put for me this that chemical, which is called this one. Because you've had a neighbor saying, you put for me this one. Sometimes you even don't know the name, how to pronounce the name properly, but you just say, put for me. You don't know as a farmer how you're going to apply it. There are scenarios where farmers who till this land and produce food for us, they go as they're applying these chemicals, they are bare chest because it's too hot in the garden. They don't have the mask. They don't have any protective gear. And yet we have a government in this country that is supposed to protect its people. And it is by law. Government is supposed to protect the farmers and to protect any human being from any harm. But now, here are the chemicals, here are the farmers using chemicals as though they are just using mere water. They spray as they are conversing with their children, with their wives, and calling the wives to bring more water, to bring more chemicals to add here. In the course of doing this, they are inhaling such chemicals. And after some time, they fall victims. Like Agnes was saying, they flood the Cancer Institute. Please, I want to request anybody in Uganda, if you're nearby the Cancer Institute, please reach there and see what we are saying. The place has no area where you can be accommodated. I had a patient there, and I just had to rebel on the nurses. They were telling me to take back the patient home. And then the patient was almost dying. I told them, this patient rather dies here so that you prepare him after death. I cannot take him home because I don't know how to handle a dead person. So I'm not going Tell me anywhere, even at the doorway, I will put this patient, so that when the doctors are passing, stepping over him, they can ask, now what about this one? Maybe they can have pity on him and treat him. It's a very serious matter. Ladies and gentlemen, as we are making our National Development Plan 4, and as we are doing our planning for the next financial year, our planners have directed on 4 areas or sectors that are supposed to drive this economy. One of them is agriculture. The other one is tourism. The other one is manufacturing. And the last one is science. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the Fourth Estate, if agriculture is where we are now, is contaminated, are we sure that this sector will lead us, project us to a middle income status? Are we going to reach there? Tourism, if our food is contaminated, which tourists will come to Uganda to eat contaminated food, because these people don't come with their food. They eat our own food from our own markets through the different hotels where they reside. What about the manufacturing? Garbage in and garbage out. When you put garbage into the manufactured food, then some of us who think we have arrived, we don't eat those foods from Kalerwe. They are very dirty. We are going to the supermarket. You will get these chemicals in the supermarket. And then the science, like we are saying, I don't know whether the sciences or the scientists are helping this country or they are here to destroy. No wonder one time a scientist told us that for us as scientists, ours is the first to act. Then the impact shall be addressed by another person, which for me I don't think is humane in nature. I want us to be our brother's keeper. Do to me what you want to be done to you later at a time. Because this will not only affect us or affect the smallholder farmers or affect people in Kampala, but at the end of the day, you're going to get this contaminated food anywhere you will buy your food. The other one is these chemicals are a vicious circle of contamination. Even if you say, I will grow my own food, yes, you will grow your own food, but you will get the chemicals in the water. A study done by UNACO indicated that we have a lot of chemical residues in our foods, in our tomatoes, in our cabbages, but even a study done by Caritas Uganda indicated that there is contamination of water, surface water and underground water. So where do you get your water that you consume? Unless you import them from some of these countries, maybe Denmark or where. But if you drink water that is produced and that you get here in Uganda, you will never escape from taking the chemical residues. So there is a vicious circle of chemical contamination in every aspect and every value chain. And as I conclude, I want to call upon the farmers out there. Let's be our brothers' keepers, and let's desist the use of these agrochemicals. Let us go back to our organic pesticides and organic chemicals that we can use without any harm, because the power lies in our hands to change everything within our means. In this situation and in this era, I believe, and I am very, very optimistic that we are going to change this. And you know, everything depends on the demand. If we cut off the demand of these agrochemicals, there is no way that these people will manufacture the chemicals and send to us in Uganda. Can we say no to hazardous chemicals in Uganda for God and my country?
Thank you so much, Moses. The floor is yours. Moses is from Pelham. Again, he works with small-scale producers. Moses.
Thank you. I wish to wish us a happy new year and greetings to the press. My name is Moses Onen. I work for Participatory Ecological Land Use Management, that is PELAM Uganda. And PELAM is an association of organizations working to promote ecological land use management. It's about ecology. We also host the Secretariat for the National Agroecology Actors Platform. And the entity chairing this platform is the Ministry of Agriculture, MAIF. So we work hand in hand. Now, when we sit here to sound issues of concern to the country, I would like to associate myself with the previous submissions, and without repeating, I'll only make 2 points. One is we are grappling with issues of low productivity of land, high vulnerability to climate change and its impacts, intellectual dishonesty at this point, and above all, new colonialism, and where we are talking about issues of food sovereignty. When we lose our food sovereignty, it means we have lost our grip on our food systems. And when we talk about food, we are talking about our person. As Ugandans from the different parts of the country, we are who we are because of the food we consume. I look like this because I consume kalo from northern Uganda. You look like that because you consume matoke, rice from other parts of the country. And food is culture. And therefore, when you're talking about matters of food, we talk about identity, we talk about culture, and we talk about rights and sovereignty. The first point I would like to make is calling us back to get to our nature-based way of producing food, of consuming food, and of distributing food. And in short, I talk about agroecology, which has been expounded here by our scientists and also my other colleagues. In short, agroecology is about a set of practices that we do in producing food, in dealing with issues of pests and diseases, and these are mostly nature-based, from organic substances, interacting within the same ecological setting. 2 is about science. Agroecology is about science, how science is making useful contribution to enhancing the potential of agriculture and food systems of the country. Where science is becoming a danger to agriculture, then we have to do away with it. Lastly, agroecology is about movement of conscious farmers, of conscious citizens who front fair and just food systems. Fair and just food systems is delivered through accountability. Accountability in terms of the discussions we have, in terms of the laws we have, and in terms of the regulative measures we have as a country. I would like to speak only on one component, and that's the National Agroecology Strategy. As a country, we started this process of developing this strategy 3 years ago. But before that, we had the National Organic Agriculture Policy, which took us more than 13 years to have it approved. And again, we have the National Agroecology Strategy. What is our standing in the region, in the East African region? Last year, around the month of March, we had a delegation from Kenya. They came to Uganda to benchmark and to learn and to study about our draft National Agroecology Strategy, the draft one. We're able to show them how we reached there. When Kenya went back in November, they approved their National Agroecology Strategy. And in Uganda, we are still grappling with ours, not approved. So what are we looking at? Tanzania has a strategy, and they're coming together to see how do we get back to agroecology, and we regain our food sovereignty. So I'm sounding this call to our technocrats, and our leaders that we need to expedite the process of approving the national agroecology strategy. We are too late in the region. It's actually embarrassing. Our ministers go to Kenya. Our president was recently in Kenya. I wonder what he would have responded. What his answer would be if was asked about the national agriculture strategy. So we need to get more serious. Lastly, I would like also to talk about agroecology as a movement of conscious farmers. I would like to thank the farmers in Agago. I'm Onen, and I come from Acholi, which is a hub of this chemical use. My brother, Professor Ogea, should have been at the forefront of fighting the use of these chemicals. I would like to remind him that he became obsolete to farmers when he joined this movement of promoting GMOs. And that is the point he was voted out of parliament. Amen. He has since become irrelevant in the political arena of the Acholi. We don't have a vocabulary of GMOs in Acholi, and anyone who promotes the idea of GMO in Acholi, we shall keep them out of the August House. And I would like also to warn the president himself, associating with such characters would cause you more unpopular constituencies countrywide, because we cannot promote killer mentalities. So I invite my brother to get more intellectually honest and get back to this debate. You cannot rubbish the discussion on allegation that a group of CSOs are being funded to talk about this and that. No, that is dragging the discussion below the belt. Is not expected of a professor. It's actually absurd that we associate our region with such low-level discussions. And with this, I would like to end by calling upon the Parliament to expedite the passing of anti-GMO law. We are saying no to genetically modified organisms and to genetic engineering in our food systems. We are saying no. So Parliament expedite this law, and also government through MAIF expedite the approval of the National Agroecology Strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Lastly, I want to call upon Herbert to talk about briefly trade and also to wrap up this conversation. Herbert, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. My name is Herbert Kafero. I work with Signatory as the Programs and Communications Manager. And thanks to the members of the Fourth Estate for giving attention to this issue. And indeed, when we talk about hazardous pesticides as a silent killer, I would like to differ a bit and say hazardous pesticides are a loud killer, no longer a silent killer. And I would like to briefly speak to the issue of trade, because there are implications for trade. And I would like to remind us that in 2015, the government of Uganda imposed a self-ban on the export of agricultural produce to the EU. And that was attributed to residues that were found in our agricultural produce, noting that Uganda exports a wide range of agricultural products to the EU, including vegetables, flowers, among others. But our agricultural products that are exported to the EU had a number of residues in them, and so the EU rejected a number of those products. But subsequent to that, Uganda imposed a self-ban on the export of agricultural products to the EU in order to address the challenges that were cited by the EU. And in 2015, government of Uganda committed to retrain farmers and exporters of agricultural products to the EU. And the self-ban that was imposed by the government of Uganda on agricultural products was sustained for a number of years until around 2018, and 2019. But also in 2019, the EU reminded the government of Uganda of a pending ban on the export of agricultural products to the EU. In fact, the reminder came as a way of following up because we had a self-ban. And now in 2019, the European Union reminded the government of Uganda that there was this self-ban where the issues addressed, because every market has specific requirements. And the EU market has a number of sanitary and phytosanitary standards and measures. So for Uganda's products to achieve market access and entry to the EU market, there are prerequisites that we have to meet that include sanitary and phytosanitary standards. And so we cannot ignore the fact that pesticides, hazardous pesticides, negatively impact our trade and ultimately food security. But also I would like to talk about the whole issue of mushrooming agrochemical dealers on the market. Because in every trading center, you will not miss finding an agro shop. And the person who is operating that agro shop, in a way, presents themselves as an expert. And so we call upon the government of Uganda to confirm, to regulate, to inspect, to do the needful, go on ground, beyond going to the container village. Let the government do a comprehensive regulation and inspection. And inspection requires the government to fully fund the mandated institutions, because when we talk about the mandated institutions, we cannot ignore the fact that Uganda National Bureau of Standards has a key role to play. And so government of Uganda should, in fact, have a coordinated approach. We're talking about the One Health agenda, where there is a collaboration among all relevant ministries, departments, and agencies. Let Ministry of Trade, Industry, and Cooperatives work closely with the Ministry of Health, also work closely with the Ministry of Trade and Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry, and Fisheries, in order for us to find a lasting solution and to curb the challenge. But also, when we talk about a collaborative approach, it is also important for UNBS to increase the number of inspectors, Ministry of Health to work closely with UNBS so that the issue is not addressed in a silo manner. And with all that, I request to stop here, but also introduce the Luganda edition of the press conference. And I would like to request Ms. Jane Nalunga to take us through the Luganda edition. Okay, the Luganda edition. No, questions will come later.
Okay, you want to ask questions, then Uganda can come later.
Yes.
Okay, you do that then. Okay. And you can indicate whom you want to respond to that question, because everybody is here. Council Kawanja, please. Okay, please go ahead.
Doctor, come.
Doctor, come here. Come. Sit here. The line of fire. Please go ahead.
Fire.
You indicate your name, okay.
And you clearly showed us that you know about the availability of these banned drugs in drug shops. Why don't you work hand in hand with the authorities to bring to their attention that this is not right? These drugs should not be in the shelves because they are doing us a disservice. Then secondly, why don't you have a food and drug authority to monitor issues to do with drugs and food holistically, rather than you have this in Ministry of Agriculture, the other in Ministry of Trade, and then something in Ministry or whatever UNBS.
Okay. Bernard and Dr. Rupert will answer that. Bernard, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Steve. So you're asking why we don't have an authority. I thought that Agnes would be in better position to answer this. But I think for over the years, we've been fighting to make sure that we have an authority to deal with issues of food. And I think government has come up to say that there will be a food, what is it called, an agriculture authority, FARA. So we are still waiting on when this can be actualized, but we have seen the terms of reference for that authority in place. And so we're just waiting for, I think, approvals, and I think this authority will come out. If you look at the mandate of that authority, it will take charge of the chemical regulation and issues around food. So we think and we hope that we shall be able to get this authority serve the purpose that is meant to serve. So I think that is it for the authority. In terms of why aren't we working with the authorities to make sure that these chemicals are taken off the stalls, we kept on assuming that is the mandate of those authorities to actually do this work. And over the years, we are learning that actually the authority seems not to be doing the best we expect of them. And so that's why we are coming up to call upon them anyway to start inspections, to go and take off this. In our previous engagements with the Ministry of Agriculture, we have seen that when we put a lot of pressure, we've seen some efforts with the ministry to go and, go to Container Village and pull out a few things. But the question is, these chemicals have gone beyond the Container Village. They are now up to the doorsteps in the villages down there where the authorities are actually not doing work. So we are thinking, and we are calling upon the authorities to actually serve with the agriculture officers in the communities, in the sub-counties, to inspect these areas. And I think there's still a call that we cannot grow tired of telling them to go where they are, because we know where these things are, and then the authority knows where these things are. So I think we shall keep on hardening to make sure that this call is taken seriously. Thank you.
But I think the most strategic thing that we must do as a country, we know the floodgates. And if you know that this is the floodgate, I think it is only sensible that you close the floodgate. It is easier to close the entry of these already classified highly hazardous, that are actually not only classified, those that are even not used from the countries where they are coming from, and yet we are targeting those countries for our products to save ourselves from the embarrassment of bans, or these bans even self-imposed ones. Let us close that floodgate. I think it is the cheapest and easiest way, other than running all over the country, going to look into every input dealers, whatever and whatever and whatever. There we are losing a lot of money, and we do not have the human, we do not have the financial, the technological, and the time capacity to do that. The cheapest thing to do, close the floodgate, and things are done. But I think we also need to emphasize that as civil society, we are very, very excited that despite the government of Uganda moving towards rationalizing its institutions, they found it prudent that we needed to have an institution on food in this country. I know there are serious people, people are claiming to be serious on everything. There are serious people who are saying, they are rationalizing this and they are rationalizing the other, but they are creating an authority on food. Actually, they can close all of the institutions in this country and we shall live in it, provided there is Bank of Uganda and a food institution. Others will find us later.
Maybe just to supplement that, the fourth element of agroecology is actually the politics. And emerging out of that is actually the regulations and controls. The government has a structure, a very powerful structure, up to the LOC1. How can we leverage on that established structure to actually send the message to the grassroots under the parish development model, which is the zone of the LOC1? Can we have a capacity built through that structure to actually, first of all, actually putting on hold the use of these chemicals is the immediate thing as the rest takes place, and that should happen hand in hand with the crop protection unit at MAIF. Those are the two, there's an inlet and the final recipient. Once those two are dealt with, I think it may not even require that much money.
Actually, to add on that, we even have a very complex and effective security structure.
Yeah.
If we take on this as a security hazard, you know, we start from ISO,
Yeah.
we have PISO, GISO,
PISO.
PISO, we even have HISOs, the household security, VISO, the village, but we also have the household internal security officers. So we have a very elaborate security structure. We already have structures that we just have to harness, the administrative ones, but also the security ones. If we close the floodgates, harness these administrative and security structures, Uganda is going to be the real pearl of Africa.
Thank you very much. Just one thing. In this paper, I have 55 chemicals that have been registered by MAIF, and yet the same are not approved to be used in the EU, which is our trade partner. I don't know what we are thinking about as a country. So call number one is with immediate effect, because these chemicals were registered by MAIF in 2023. With immediate effect, can you deregister these 55 chemicals that MAIF has already registered? Number two, can we increase the inspectors? Because the inspectors we have moved all the way from MAIF in Entebbe to the regions, and these people have their syndicates. By the time you reach in Wakiso, the ones in Fort Portal or the other next district are calling and telling their friends they are on their way coming, and they close all these agro shops. So can we include inspectors and let these inspectors be residents in the district and in the different sub-counties so that we can try to avoid this killer disease that is destroying this country? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question? And maybe Betty, when you look at that list, and we are going to give you copies, there is expire of current approval. Yes. Some of these drugs have expired, but they are still on the market. Any other issue to raise? Yes, please.
My name is Ronald Musuga from Independent Magazine. My question goes to Council Kabanda. You appear so serious. And
Not to the other serious.
yes, about the issue we've been discussing over the last 2 hours now. Are you considering, you as a considering maybe if there's an investigation okay, some of the names that have appeared here, people who are imposing.
Well, this is it. These guys know that they are killing Ugandans. We just want to put them on notice that we are going to sue them. As simple as that. So you continue peddling lies, you continue playing around with Ugandans. Maybe time has come, because you have been doing these, I don't want to call them foolish things, because we must continue being civil. But for lack of a better word, we are going to sue you because you are criminally liable. Not only in criminal law, not only in human rights law, not only in environmental law, but also in public health law. You are playing around with our ecosystem, you are playing around with our food, you are playing around with our rural economies. You can't survive. You will not continue doing this and then we look on. We will sue you. Not, of course, the government has the wider mandate under the Constitution, under Article 20, respect, protect, and fulfill. But these individuals who are going around with intellectual dishonesty will be held accountable and individually.
Good. Any other issue? Question? Yes, please.
By the way, before you come, let me tell people, I'm Kabanda David. I'm a public interest litigator. I'm a member of the Uganda Law Society.
You bang that table.
Please be put on notice. We have a radical new way of looking at these legal rights that we must have. One of those rights is the right to food, right to a clean and healthy environment, right to an ecosystem that is not killing anyone. We will defend the children because we are talking about the future. Maybe you have killed us silently. I don't know how the amount of chemicals that are already in my body. Maybe I must fight for the coming generation. The rights of the children are on the table. Last year alone, you saw how many children were dying in our schools, eating maize and posho that has been contaminated in the fields. Do you know that Ugandans spray maize to dry? Do you know that? Do you know the chemicals that are used in many post-harvest stores to preserve beans and maize? And then you come around and then play around, you know. Why do you do that? I think before the superstructures are used, is it security, is it administrative? Because they know this. They know we will now go against individuals. Maybe because it is an elephant, if you want to eat it, you don't swallow it entirely. You have to defer and eat a leg after finishing those who have, then we shall eat the ears and we shall eat the intestines.
Yes, please.
Yes.
According to the statistics we've been getting from you, actually, which are well researched, they are indicating that 48.8 they are registered, they are legally registered pesticides, and they are highly dangerous. Me as personally, I would love to pose a question to all of you. How sweet is it for you to advocate for mitigation first? Because there are possibility that these pesticides, okay, they are dangerous, but farmers are still interested in them. Another question, have you taken a step to sensitize to the maximum, make sure that these farmers get to know how dangerous are these pesticides?
Can I go?
You go.
Okay. You see, we are interested in harm reduction. It is a strategy. We are using it. We've been speaking to farmers. And why we are now coming up like this, although we are speaking to farmers on issue of harm reduction, because we know poisoning is everywhere. Farmers have these chemicals they don't know. I want today a government to tell us whether these chemicals have local language translation. Someone is buying 2,4-D. What is 2,4-D? So even when we are talking about mitigation, it is like playing games. You are telling a farmer, do ABCD. You just heard from the panelists that farmers are doing all concoctions of a cocktail of everything. A farmer will look at a pest and they want it to die immediately. So although as civil society, we are promoting harm reduction, mitigation, but sometimes you do something which you know will not work. What we need to do is to be straight. First of all to government, but number two to other stakeholders like traders, but also to these academicians who have picked up, okay, to be fair, to be equitable, and to be real. These chemicals are killing not only the farmer, not only the trader, not only me, but you, including you. And you, I don't mean you, the press people. I mean those people who sit in big chairs in parliament. And I want to whisper to the president. You see, someone said civil society. No. He's the fountain of honor. We want to tell him that these chemicals are killing your people if you care. That is it, if you care. We want to appeal to you. We cannot do trade when we are dead. Every time we are burying people and we are saying God has called them. God has not called them. These pesticides have called them. and you have allowed the people to import things here that are killing Ugandans. So mitigation, okay, we will do dialogues, but we will also go into confrontation if we need to do that.
Yeah, maybe just to supplement or complement what the council has said. I think earlier on he talked about the importance of certification. If we really must spray, let it be done by an expert who knows what they are doing with maximum protection. The sprayers are not even protected. Glyphosate can get it through the skin, the eyes, the ears, the legs, whichever part of the body is open, because it is systemic. It can get into the tissue and cause its havoc. So let it be done by certified professionals. Now, awareness, whose responsibility is it? I'm aware that the right to life, the right to a clean and healthy environment are constitutionally guaranteed. I don't know. Who should do the awareness creation? But also, government should really pick interest in what we in academia are doing. The African Union agenda is not an agenda for Africa. If you look at agriculture, for example, the focus of African Union is crop improvements. Is our problem the varieties of seed or the degradation of the soil and water? Where should what fraction of the people doing extending agricultural technologies and innovations should be the breeders versus those who are on environmental matters? Because now, the other day I had colleagues complaining, oh, you see, we have received 100 PhD applications, so many 120 masters to come and do plant breeding and seed systems. How much of Africa's problem is because of varieties versus correcting the environment that was destroyed by bad agricultural practices? So government should also pick interest in and take lead in which programs are actually mounted and who gets trained to deliver on what. All this should be in the national development plan. They should come to the grassroots. If you say you want 8,000 soil scientists by 2030, where are they going to come from? When each year I only receive one soil scientist or two. Because of the free choices people make that for me I'm going to do economics, I'm going to do this, the government must take a control that we shall employ you to deliver on the following skills, which is actually in tandem with the single spine extension system. Now, we cannot be left just like that, because now the people doing extension went through a system that told them how good and wonderful the pesticides are, how wonderful improved varieties are, without any knowledge about the indigenous practices of the farmers. Their seeds are considered pests, they are poor yielding, they are not. So now the mindset of the scientist, to change it, we must begin from the curriculum.
Okay, the mandate for national information and guidance stays in the hands of government. And we are pretty aware that we have a whole ministry that has not been rationalized yet on national guidance and information. And that's why I said that 2025 is a very critical year for us to make very critical decisions. What kind of national guidance does this ministry give? And if this is not part of the national guidance and information the ministry embraces and puts at the forefront, we are here this morning to invite the Ministry of National Guidance and Information to interest itself in these issues and come out and guide. And the beauty about national guidance is like you're not only guiding the populace, but you're also guiding government institutions. So we are saying there is a lot of information in the academia. Our academia is very much linked with what government and policy and programming is doing. Our academia was limited to giving us degrees, whether we need them, whether we shall use them, whether the country needs them. And they limited them to marking scripts, exam scripts and courseworks. Academia is supposed to do research, and then government, through its institutions like the Ministry of National Guidance, uses all of this literature we have given you to a level of getting constipated to guide the country. The second category of people that have a lot of power is you, the fourth estate. We are just a few of us using a few coins. We can only stretch our hands to this level. But you're controlling frequencies. Just like you have been able to promote Arsenal and Man U to the deepest point of the village, we can work and continue working with you such that this information is disseminated and people take individual interest, because you will die and lie individually in that grave. In the period of being sick, we can pretend or not even claim to be around you, but the pain inflicted, we will suffer it individually. When actually people come to hospital to bring us food, you, because of the pain, you will say, I don't want, me the attendant, I'll turn around and enjoy the fish. So we have to take individual interests as the people of Uganda, and let us manage our greed for money, because we have told you, you might make the money this season, but the next season you will be running Harambe, because treating some of these illnesses. No, India, some of us have not crossed Kajans. Don't talk about India, we shall be heading to the tent. Bernard.
Okay. Bernard, I think we are wrapping this up. Bernard, please. But I was also wondering about the 4-acre model, whether the 4-acre model can work.
Yeah.
Okay. Bernard, please, and wrap up. I don't think we have any more questions.
The question was what steps we have. He was also asking what steps we have taken as civil society. I think we've done substantially well as civil society. One of the immediate things we can talk about is such an activity that we are doing, ensuring that the community members take very much interest in this subject matter. And I think that is a plus to civil society. But two, you know that we have private sector and also we have civil society organizations that have invested in alternatives to pesticides. We've seen colleagues doing a lot of work in agroecology, organic, and all this. We know that we have colleagues who have come up with organic solutions, but the challenge in this country has been certifying organic products. So whereas we are talking about chemicals and we can, ban the importation of highly hazardous, we have had a challenge with certification of organics. People here are doing a lot of research on organic products, but we have a challenge of certifying them. So I think as part of what we are doing is coming up with these alternative solutions to these challenges. But bottom the line, I have been doing quite substantially on this subject of pesticides in communities. My grandmom in the community will ask me a question. When I see rocket in the nearby shop, me, I don't understand your chemistry, I don't understand your science, but the moment rocket is in my neighborhood, it means government has approved it. So by the mere fact that government has approved this chemical, the community members have nothing to say. They say, but the government has approved it, and government is mandated to protect me anyway. So they will use. So what we are saying is, can we ban the highly hazardous pesticides so that they don't reach my mother down there, so that I don't consume it in food unknowingly, so that I don't eat it? Do you want to tell me that our leaders have not seen Makozebon tomatoes? So if they have seen, does that need me now to even come and explain this? So it's an issue of our leaders taking interest in actually totally stopping some of these things that they know are actually highly hazardous at the expense of wanting to get taxes and whatnot. We shall kill society, we shall kill people who are giving us the taxes. Thank you.
So thank you so much, members of the Fourth Estate. I think we'll wrap up this and we can go to
Uganda.
Uganda. We are going to do Uganda, we can do Acholi, we can do Ifeso.
Even Chinese.
Okay, even Chinese.
Naye nga balwagala Oluganda. Tuyinza okuba tubakooya.
Uganda, you can.
Yes, there are few.
Is there anybody who wants Ateso?
UBC Bukevo channel. They are not here. Dijapagala. What here? Actually, benefit.
Oh, okay. Sorry?
Ebadde workshop number. Oba conference.
A workshop.
Mukozi.
Ekimuzo kyani.
I'm defending this side.
Habari, ekimuzo kino kyani. Okay, kakati Oluganda. Oluganda. Ngenda kwogerako katono agyoyogera Oluganda. Recommendations zizokka.
Maybe also the theme.
There should be a preamble recommendation.
Okay. Kakati ekintu ekikulu kye tubadde twogerako olwaleero by'eddagala erifuuyirwa ku birime, eddagala eritta abantu bye bakozesa mu nnimiro, okutta omuddo, okutta ebiwuka mu birime ne mu bisolo. Kakati eddagala eryo lya bulabe era kino kye tubadde twogerako nga twagala abantu bamanye, gavumenti emanye, abantu abalikozesa okumanya nti eddagala eryo engeri gye balitundamu, engeri gye liyingiramu wano, engeri gye balitundamu lya bulabe nnyo eri ffe abantu, eri ebirime, kubanga eddagala lino lituyingira mu mubiri ne ligenda mu kibumba ne litulwaza kookolo. Eddagala eryo litta enjuki ate tuzeetaaga mu kulima ebirime byaffe. Lyonoona n'ettaka lyaffe, obugimu bw'ettaka. Kakati ekyo kye tubadde tuliko nga tugamba gavumenti erina okulaba nga eddagala eryo waliwo, kubanga eddagala lino lya mitendera, waliwo eryo eryobulabe ddala ddala, ate era nga n'ebitongole bingi n'ebitongole bikolanga ku mmere eby'ensi yonna, era baabijjayo ne bagamba nti eddagala lino nalino lya bulabe nnyo nnyo, highly hazardous mu lufuutifuuti, lya bulabe nnyo nnyo, naye ng'ate tulirina wano ku butale bwaffe, abantu baligula, abantu ne baliteeka ku birime byabwe, ne balifuyiza ente, ate eddagala eryo ne likomawo ffe bwe tulya ennyama oba bwe tulya ebirime. Ekintu ekirala ekyogeddwako wano y'engeri eddagala eryo lye likwatibwamu. Abalitunda nabo baba tebeebikiridde, tebeesabise, n'abalifuuyira tebalina bukugu, baba tebambadde, baba tebeesabise bulungi, ne baba nga lyongera okuleeta obulabe. N'ekirala n'engeri gye litabulwamu. Mu byalo osanga omuntu akutte lino, akutte liri, lyonna aligasse wamu ne liba nga lya bulabe. Kaakati tulina ebintu bingi nnyo bye tusabye gavumenti. Kansabe mukyala Kirabo, butono ojja kubigira, ojja kuwa biwulidde, ajja naye kutuyisaayisaamu ku bintu bino, naye nga ku kintu ekimu kye twasabye gavumenti yateekawo boodi bodi
Ekitongole.
ekitongole ekikola ku ddagala lino ng'ekitongole kino kirina okulaba engeri eddagala lino lye liyingiramu, engeri gye likola, okulondoola ekintu ekyo. Tubadde tusaba gavumenti nti gundi ekitongole kino kiri mu kitongole ky'ebyobulimi. Ekitongole kino gavumenti ekiwa oba ebikozesebwa n'ekibadde tekikola, ekitongole ekyo kikole. Ekintu ekirala kye tugamba nti gavumenti erekeraawo okuyingiza ebikozesebwa ebyo ebyobulabe, eganire ddala nti ekyo tekiyingira mu Uganda wano. Ekintu ekirala kwe kulaba nti gavumenti eteekawo ku ssente omutemwa gwa ssente, abantu babayigirize bonna, abantu bamanye enkwata y'eddagala, engeri gye baliterekamu, engeri gye balifuuyiramu, tube nga tuwona ekibambulira kino. Ekirala kye twagambye era gavumenti eteekawo ku ssente okukola embuuliriza, okunoonyereza, okulaba nti tuddayo tukola agroecology, okulaba nti ebintu by'obulimi byaffe byekuusa ku by'obutonde byaffe nga tebikoonagana na bya butonde. Tuddeyo okulima emmere nga emmere ya mugaso eri ffe, ng'emmere tetulwaza, eyo gye tuyita mu lufuutifuuti agroecology. Era nga tugamba nti tuteekewo n'engeri strategy, engeri enkola enteekateeka ey'okulaba nti ebyobulimi byaffe bikwata omulamu ogwo ogw'okulaba nga tukola bulungi, nga tukozesa bulungi obutonde bwaffe. Kaakati ekirala era kye twagambye, olukuŋŋaano lwa kadapu olujja, mukyala Kiraba ajja kulwogerako. Era ekyo kye tubadde tugamba nti bwe tuba twogera ku bintu by'okozesa, ku bintu by'obulimi bwaffe n'engeri gye tukozesaamu bino bye tufuuyira, bwe tuba twogera ku bintu ebyo twandibadde tulaba nti tewali beefuula nti bo bamanyi nnyo, kubanga ekintu kino ffenna kitukwatako. Ate n'abalimi, kubanga abalimi baffe abo ate bamanyi nnyo n'okusinga abantu abagamba nti baasoma. N'olwekyo bwe tuba twogera ku kintu kino, nga twogera ku bintu ebikwata ku kufuuyira, ebikwata ku by'obulimi, abalimi baffe bandibadde babeebuuzaako nnyo ne bamanya kye baagala, n'okulaba nti obuzibu bw'obulimi bwa Uganda tebuli mu bintu bya nsigo oba ku ndi bya bisolo, naye lwakuba nti ne gavumenti ebintu by'obulimi esuddeyo gwa naggamba. Ne bw'olaba budget, esente ezigenda zibateekawo ez'obulimi, sente ntono, abalimisa mu byalo tewakyali. Ne we batereka ebintu byabwe abalimi balima kasooli, ne bwe bamutereka tebalabawo. N'olwekyo okugamba nti bwe tufuna ebiragala bino ne tubifuuyira, kye kijja okutuyamba okuva mu njala, kye kijja okuyamba okwongeza ebirimiddwa, ekyo si kituufu. Naye ate n'ekirala nti bwe tuba twogera ku bintu bino tuwaŋŋane ekitiibwa, nga tumanyi nti buli omu alina kyamanyi, buli omu alina kyaleeta ku tebo. Akampe mukyala Kirabo omukisa ayogere naye ku bintu
mpozi n'ekisembayo. Bwe tuba twogera ku by'obulimi, ebyobulimi n'ebyemmere bitudde wakati w'ensonga nnyingi nnyo. Ebyobulimi n'emmere bitudde wakati w'ebyobulamu, bitudde wakati w'obutonde bw'ensi, bitudde wakati w'ebyenfuna, bitudde wakati w'ebyobufuzi. N'olwekyo bwe tuba tubyogerako, tuleme okubyogerako nga twesuliikiridde, kubanga oyinza okuba nga obitunulako bitunuzi ng'omulimi naye tegeera nti twogera ku byabulamu bw'abantu, twogera ku bulamu obw'ebisolo n'ebintu byonna ebirina obulamu nga n'ettaka mwolitwalidde, twogera ku butonde bw'ensi, twogera ku by'obufuzi, twogera ku byenfuna, twogera ku by'enkolagana y'amawanga n'enkolagana wakati mu bantu n'engeri gye tukolagana n'obutonde bw'ensi. Mu kiseera kino nga okusomoozebwa okusinga okubeera okunene mu nsi yonna si kwa balwanagana newankubadde nga gye bali balwanagana. Okusomoozebwa okusinga okunene mu nsi yonna kakati kwe tulina kuli ku nsonga bbiri zokka. Ensonga esooka y'ey'abantu okulumwa enjala n'abakoozimba nga kwogasse n'abagejjulukuka n'okuyimbulukuka. Ensonga ey'okubiri y'ey'obutonde bw'ensi obutwekyangiddeko obulabika nga tugaanye okukolagana nabwo obulungi. Twogera ku nsonga zino olwaleero mu mwaka ogwa 2025 nga twaniriza abantu bonna bannayuganda mu mwaka gwa 2025 twaniriza Africa yonna egenda okuŋŋaanira mu Uganda nga tutandika 2025. Omwaka 2025 gwa nkizo nnyo. Okusooka nti gwe mwaka okugenda okusalawo ebyobufuzi bya Uganda wano e Uganda, gwe mwaka gwe tutandika olugendo lwaffe olw'enteekateeka y'ebyenkulaakulana ey'omulundi ogwokuna National Development Plan 4, gwe mwaka ffe nga Uganda wano e Kampala lwe tugenda okuŋŋaanya Africa yonna okussa omukono ku nteekateeka ya myaka 10 okulaba engeri gye tugenda okukwatamu ebyobulimi mu Africa naye ate n'ebyendya mu Africa eyeeyongera okulumwa enjala. Era gwe mwaka gwe tulina okusiba enkoba okulaba nga tutuukiriza ebiruubirirwa ebyenkulaakulana mu nsi yonna eby'emyaka 5. N'olwekyo abantu basuubira nnyo mu Africa, balina essuubi nnyo mu Africa, naye nga Africa nga tetunnaba kulowooza nti kyetusobola okuwa ensi by'ebyobugagga eby'omu ttaka. Ekintu kye tusobola okuzinyisa ensi eno ne tugizinyisa oluguje kwe kugiwa emmere efumbekedde mu Africa, emmere ennungi, emmere erimwa mu buwangwa bwaffe obungi ennyo, emmere ennyonjo, emmere erimu emigaso eri abantu abagirya, ebisolo bye tuwaako, naye ate n'obutonde bw'ensi. Tunyweza ebigambo bino nti bannange agalagalagano naddala ago agayogerwako nti ga bulabe nnyo tegandibadde nga gakozesebwa mu ggwanga lyattu. Amazima gasigala nga ge mazima nti obulwadde bwa kkookolo bweyongedde obungi. Mu kifo ky'ebyenfuna okwongera essente mu byobulimi Jane, munnange nina amawulire amalungi nti omwaka gw'ebyensimbi guno gwe tulimu gavumenti ya Uganda yayongera essente Cancer Institute. Yategeera nti Cancer Institute tugyetaaga nnyo. Twalabyeko n'aba Cancer Institute nga bakuba omulanga nti weema tezikyatumala, nti oluusi abakyala balengera akafo mu weema y'abaami ne bagenda beeganzikako eyo, si lwakubanga baagala. Ne balyoka bakuba n'omulanga nti ndowooza twandigaziyizza ku kifo ne tuzimbawo n'ekifo ekyenkalakkalira. Eryo n'eddoboozi litegeeza nti ffenna eyo gye tugenda okuggwera. Mu kifo ky'okubawagira tubawagire babawe ekifo ekisaanidde, naye tuwagire nnyo okulaba nga bangi kufa abatannabagendayo tetugendayo. Tetwandyagadde twerowoozeeko ffekka na ffekka ffe ab'omulembe guno nti nze njogerwako ng'omulimi omukugu ng'olimira Kampala n'okubayo essimu. Abaana b'okozesa ku nnimiro bwe balwala n'obasindika ewaabwe ne bagenda bafa ne babulwa n'ekirango ekibabika. Ebintu bino bye twogerako birimu omukisa. Ogumu ku mukisa ogwogerwako nti bwe tuba tugamba nti abaana baffe abavubuka bangi tebalina mirimu, ng'ate etteeka ligamba nti okukozesa eddagala lino mu nnimiro oba ku bisolo olina okuba ng'olina ebbaluwa, tolabaawo nga waliwo omulimu. Gavumenti esomesa ebibinja by'abavubuka mu bitundu byaffe mu nkola eya parish development model nga tuyina abafuuyiza ekigambo kyabwe abafuuyira abaakakasibwa ne basomesebwa bulungi nnyo gavumenti abamanyi ekyokukola. Kale k'abalimi babaweeyo akasente akatonotono, egyo giba mirimu nga gigunjiziddwawo ng'ate abavubuka bano bakola emirimu nga bayamba ku balimi ate ne tusigala ffenna nga tukola ki nga tufunamu. Tewaba bawubisa, tewaba bawubisa nti agalagalagala si ga bulabe. Ga bulabe naddala mu mbeera mwe tugakozeseza ffe nga tutabula kipooli, tumala gakola, tumala gagula, atunda n'agula, eddagala balinnyonnyola na langi, liri awo lya kakobekobe naye nga si mukwafu nnyo. Kati kakobekobe nga si mukwafu nnyo yaani? N'ebyo ebiri eyo gye tuli. Abantu abakola ebyobulamu bo bagezi. Akaduuka akatunda eddagala ly'obulamu bakayita akaduuka akatunda eddagala, drug shop. Naye munnange akaduuka akatunda ebiragalalagala bino bye twogeddeko bakayita kabaddiira. Omwaka omujja omulungi.
Kane tweyanzizza nnyo, tweyanze input dealers.
Badde mbuuzaakwe, waliwo omwami yali yagambye nti emmere eri katale gye tugula 85% si nnungi, yafiirwa ebiragalalagala. Waliwo n'omukyalo ono agambye ezo kampuni 55 wano ezaali approved naye nga ate mu EU
si kampani ubundi ddagala yennyini banadyalwa banadyangu oyogera ekyo.
Agenda kubuuza.
Era bw'atabiddamu mugwe mu bulago.
Tunyuke tuli mu
Uganda nga
bw'ovaamu nga lukulemye otwala obusulu
nga benkuba eryo
ng'ogenda mu kisaakaati.
Kakati omukyala agambye agambye alina lisiti gy'alinayo agambye ebyo ebika by'eddagala ebyo